getting ready to start a new painting, and the start of a new painting is always full of so much promise and hope. The hope is that by the time we're done with the painting that we'll love it and that we fulfilled the promise of the piece and whatever excited us about doing this idea in the first place. So this is going to be a 30 by 40 painting, and it's a view looking up into the trees, which is one of my favorite types of views to paint. Well, we'll see how it goes. Let's get started on sunset in a forest. For the drawing, I used a black acrylic paint pen. I've already applied on the background a quinacridone magenta, and that's bleeding up into a thin layer of pyrrole orange. The design of this piece is linear, and the linearness is caused by all the lines of the vertical trunks of the trees. Besides the repeating shapes of the tree trunks, we also have the repeating triangular shapes of the tree tops. This is also a pleasing thing to do within a painting, and that is to create lots of repeating shapes. Also important to do when you have a lot of straight lines is to have something that is curving. So the bush on the left-hand side is going to have a lot of nice curving shapes. Because I love glazing, I'm starting the trees with varying blues and violet colors, which I plan to glaze with yellows later on. So far the blues I'm using are anthraquinone blue, and then there's also dioxazine violet, and I will use some ultramarine blue as well, and all these colors have been tinted with titanium white. Why am I painting between the tree trunks instead of putting the tree trunks first? I really like the idea of being able to leave bits of the background color show through if I want it to. The first step for doing the tree trunks is to use broken color of tints of dioxazine violet. To keep the marks interesting, I'm going both horizontally across the tree trunk as well as vertically. To create the foreground trees that are side by side, I'm using pyrrole orange tinted with titanium white. These two trees are the focal point of the painting. For color balance and to bring forward the other trees in the foreground, I'm using the pyrrole tinted orange as well, and then following that when it was dry, I did glazes of quinacridone red. Even red on the pyrrole orange will look brighter than using the magenta. Next, I did some drawing with white kids chalk to let myself know where the branches would be. I want to use negative space painting around those branches to allow that pink color to show through. Because I want this green to be a brighter green when I glaze it, I'm using a lot of phthalo blue on the top part of the leaves where the light hits, and then using the anthraquinone blue for the darker areas where the shade will be. Now that that foreground bush is done, I'm taking dioxazine violet to darken the left edge of the trees. The light is going to be coming from the left side. When I paint with somewhat transparent colors like this, I use a lot of GAC 500, which is an acrylic medium, to thin the paint down. It's much easier to use goopy paint when you're using a palette knife, so I go through a lot of medium and buy it by the gallon. So this is the stage of the painting where I start to squint my eyes to see the values better, and I lighten and darken where I need to go. I'm always aware of where the light is and how it will affect the trees. Sometimes this stage of the painting takes the longest, where I'm adding lights and going back to dark, and considering how much darker the colors will be when I add the glaze. And if I need to, I will redo them again. And a yellow glaze. Okay, where are we at with this painting? What I did is, along where the chalk lines were on these tall trees, is I took a quinacridone magenta glaze and placed where some of those branches will go. I also went into this area and I re-added some of the anthraquinone blue tints and reglazed with the Hansa yellow light, which is now called benzie yellow, and also with the nickel azo yellow. The nickel azo yellow made the blue color look a little duller, and the benzie yellow created a more bright yellow color. Anyhow, I think the thing I'm going to work on next is a variation of color along the trunks of the trees. I'm thinking perhaps turquoise. I'll try that out, see if it works. If it doesn't, I'll do something else. And anyway, looking for variations to make along the long lines of all the tree trunks. All right, let's keep going. Okay, let's give this tint of phthalo turquoise a try. Previously, I'd also tested benzie yellow light on the edge of the trees. Now I'm looking for ways to put more light on the lit edge of the trees, and this is the cadmium yellow. I'm adding more light to the edge of the trees by tinting the pyrrole orange. I'm continuing to make broken marks to make it look more organic, and if I put too much of the color down, I just wipe off with a moist paper towel. The tint of quinacridone magenta is adding some more variation of color into these trees on the top right. I make sure I have tints of varying colors on my palette ready to go. I want to bring back some of the magenta color on the side of these trees, so I'm re-whitening with titanium white. While that white dries, I'm taking tints of dioxazine purple and adding it to the top of the trees. Coming up, you can see the varying ways that I'm experimenting with the color balance. Whenever I need to, I can re-white out and do a section again. But along the way, I tried magenta and purple and varying turquoise colors. I darkened the turquoise with violet here and there, and where I needed to re-add light, I put that titanium white once again. And also for negative space holes, I did some white little bits as well, and those will be painted with the magenta again. Okay, it's time to make some adjustments on the sky. So I'm taking a tint of quinacridone magenta and I'm putting it on my brush in a really dry manner and scrubbing it into the background paint. I keep my older soft brushes for this purpose because it's very hard on the brush. I've decided to add a bit of a light glow behind these trees, so I'm adding a lot more titanium white to the magenta. I also added a tint of yellow on top of the trees that are closest to that light glow. The original background color of magenta and orange is making it a lot easier to do this sunset sky. The paint on my brush is still quite dry. I'm using no medium and no water, just thick paint. I put the paint on my brush and I actually take it a little bit off so that I don't have too much paint when I start scrubbing. And I also have a moist paper towel in my hand to rub off paint if I add too much. I added a little bit of this yellow glow. It's Benzie yellow and it's the warm one, which is the medium, so Benzie yellow medium with some white, and going throughout the painting and creating a little more sense of light and warmth. I see now that I need the sky to be a little bit darker behind that top right tree, which is more in silhouette. So that's a glaze of quinacridone magenta. Now I'm just adding some more dark shadows under the branches of the trees, and that's using dioxazine violet thinly with some GAC 500. Make it easier to do the thin lines, I'm using a really good 1/4 inch flat brush that has a nice sharp chisel edge, and I'm loading the edge of it with some paint that has been thinned down with GAC 500. My preference is to use synthetic brushes with my acrylic paintings. Okay, let's get that light glowing over in that corner below those trees. So this is not straight white, it's got a tiny bit of magenta in it. So I'm back to using my scrubby old brush, and I'm putting on the paint quite dryly and really rubbing that into the paint. Next I'm going to take titanium white and add some branches onto the trees on top of the sky and also on top of those foreground trees. And once that's dry, I will reglaze those with quinacridone magenta. Okay, we're almost done. I just continue to make a few more adjustments on the lights and the darks and some of the colors, and then that's it. Okay, a few touches and we're done, and here's the phase before all the various color glazes, and I think it's so magical to see the effects of those colors afterwards. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe for notice of new videos. Take care.